Welcome to the War Tapes. In the late 20th century, Los Angeles became the epicenter of one of America's most brutal conflicts. It wasn't a war between nations, it was a war between neighborhoods. The Bloods and the Crips, two of the most notorious gangs in American history, turned the streets of LA into a battlefield. At their peak in the 1990s, their feud would leave thousands dead and entire communities traumatized. Today, we're looking inside the deadliest gang war in LA history, how it started, why it escalated, and what finally began to slow the violence. The roots of the feud? To understand why the Bloods and Crips hated each other so much, you have to go back to the late 1960s and early 70s. The Crips were founded first. The Crips were founded first by Raymond Washington and Stanley "Tookie" Williams in South Central LA. They started as a street gang claiming to protect their neighborhood, but they quickly became known for intimidation, robberies, and violence. The Bloods formed in response smaller gangs uniting to defend themselves from Crip expansion. Over time, the rivalry became about more than turf. It was about identity, power, and revenge. By the late 1980s, crack cocaine flooded LA's streets. The drug trade supercharged the conflict. Gangs now fought not just for respect, but for millions of dollars in profits. The war in the 90s. The 1990s were the deadliest years of this feud. LA was reeling from the crack epidemic, poverty, and decades of systemic neglect. As both gangs expanded, so did their firepower. Automatic weapons replaced switchblades, and drive-by shootings became a nightly terror. Entire neighborhoods became war zones. Children were caught in the crossfire. Witnesses were too scared to speak up. According to law enforcement estimates, more than 1,000 homicides in that decade alone were linked directly to Blood and Crip violence. The media amplified the fear. Every shooting made headlines, every body count became a statistic. But behind those numbers were real lives, families destroyed, futures lost, culture and identity. By the 90s, the Bloods and Crips weren't just gangs, they were cultural symbols. Their colors, red for the Bloods, blue for the Crips, became instantly recognizable. Music, movies, and TV began depicting gang life with a mix of fascination. And horror, rappers like Tupac Shakur and Snoop Dogg referenced the violence in their lyrics. Movies like Boys and the Hood and Menace to Society tried to show the reality of South Central life. But for people living there, it wasn't entertainment. It was survival. Gang membership often started young. Kids as young as 12 or 13 were recruited. For many, joining a gang felt like the only way to find protection and belonging, the catalyst for escalation. Several specific incidents poured gasoline on an already burning fire. One was the murder of Raymond Washington himself in 1979. Though he had stepped away from day-to-day gang life, his killing sent shockwaves through the Crips and intensified. Rivalries. Another was the increasing profitability of drug sales. As crack cocaine became the drug of choice in low-income neighborhoods, the stakes rose exponentially. Every corner represented thousands of dollars and no one wanted to give up territory. Then, in the early 90s, the LAPD's war on gangs swept up thousands of young men, locking many away for years. Some hoped this would reduce violence, but it often created power vacuums that sparked new conflicts. The beginning of a truce? By the mid-90s, after years of bloodshed, some gang leaders realized the violence was tearing their communities apart. In 1992, just days before the LA riots, leaders from the Bloods and Crips gathered in Watts to negotiate peace, known as the Watts Truce. This agreement saw members from rival sets shake hands, declare a ceasefire, and even hold unity barbecues. Though violence didn't end overnight, shootings in some areas dropped by nearly half. The truce showed that change was possible, even in the most unlikely places. But not all factions respected the ceasefire, and some conflicts continued in the shadows. Legacy and impact. The Bloods versus Crips war of the 1990s left scars that still haven't fully healed. Generations were affected by incarceration, poverty, and grief. Yet out of that chaos, a powerful movement for peace and reform began to grow today. Many former gang members worked to keep kids out of the life that once consumed them. Community organizations, activists, And even some rappers have dedicated themselves to showing there's another way. The story of the Bloods and Crips is a reminder: when poverty, neglect, and hopelessness combine, the consequences can last decades. But it also proves that no conflict is too big to end if people are willing to come together.